What's up, soldiers? Thanks for joining me on this video today, where we're going to talk about who is better between Mitch Hooper and Tom Stoltman. This is just a fun debate breaking down the best traits and assets of both of these amazing strongmen. Would love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions, so please leave me a comment if you think I'm wrong, if you think I forgot something, or you just want to engage on some other considerations and topics about the greatest sport on earth. So before we dig into this, I'm talking about who is better between the two of these guys. Please do me a favor and hit the like button below and click subscribe to the channel to get more content on Strongman and all things to help you become your best, strongest self. Now, Mitch Hooper and Tom Stoltman, if you know anything about Strongman, you would know that these are two of the top dogs over the last couple of years, and two guys that are already in the discussion amongst who are some of the strongest people to ever walk the earth. Now, as we're seeing some of these close competition placings, this is just a fun debate that some people like to have, and that's why we're getting into it. Now, when we talk about who is a better strongman, there's a couple things to put into consideration. This is a little different than powerlifting, which is just, three contested events over and over and over again, and one really good performance on any given day, in my opinion, in powerlifting, would put you above anybody else that was consistently, down at this level. But that's not always the case in strongman, because some people have really, really insanely high peaks and then they crash and burn pretty quickly. And that doesn't really allow somebody to display all of the traits that are necessary to be a good strongman. So let me explain. In strongman, you have a blend of pure strength, athleticism, endurance, conditioning, and more. So you have all of these different elements, and some of these competitions that we're going to talk about slant a little more one way or the other, right? So let's just kind of talk about pure strength first, right? If we're talking about pure strength numbers, let's start with Tom Stoltman. Tom Stoltman does have the heaviest Atlas stone loaded in history world record. If I remember correctly, that is 631 pounds. So we're nearly at 300 kilos for that Atlas stone. And this is something that nobody has ever come close. Now, playing devil's advocate here, many people would say that, well, that's because nobody else has poured a bigger stone or had the opportunity to do it. Too bad. Go figure it out. If you think that Brian Shaw could have done it, that doesn't change anything. It's still an unbelievable, legendary feat of strength. Okay. And then also on the strength side, we have Mitch Hooper with the axle clean and press world record, which currently stands at 481 pounds. Just incredible, which he did do that with the split jerk technique, which some people say shouldn't count, which is one of the silliest things I've ever heard in my entire life. If you can get the weight up and get it to the right position, it's a good lift. So silly. Anyways, now Tom Stoltman, back to that stone record, nicknamed the Albatross because his arms are so long. And that's an unbelievably good trait to have in strongman. And because of that, he is one of the best stone lifters in all of history. So as we're thinking about things that you need to be rated as a good strongman, lifting stones is one of the core foundational essentials of that. So points to Tom Stoltman for being one of the best stone lifters in history. He's a chance to win any stone event that comes across a competition at any time. Now, one thing that's interesting about Mitch Hooper is that he does have a lot of strength, but there's not anything that really stands up and above anything else. If there was one thing, I would guess it would be moving events, but his thing is consistency and tactics. So he always seems to have the right way to attack and approach events, whether he's, again, particularly gifted at that or not. So again, just kind of thinking about how all these things play out. Let's go and break down the different competition placings. So let's start with the world's strongest man for Mitch Hooper. He has won one time, and he has one second place finish to Tom Stoltman. All right, so he won in 23, got second in 24. And then as we go along, he actually has completed what some would call the Strongman Grand Slam. So he's won the Arnold now twice. He's won the Shaw Classic / Strongest Man on Earth this year, 2024, and he's the reigning and defending champion at the Rogue Invitational from last year, 2023, with the next one coming up in about 3 weeks. Now, he also has 4 first place finishes in Giants Live competitions. That is something that I don't particularly rate as super valuable if we're going to have this discussion, but it is noteworthy because that's still a feat to win that show. But when we're talking about important competitions, World's Strongest Man, Arnold, Strongest Man on Earth, and the Rogue Invitational. So let's break down what Stoltman has done on some of these. Tom Stoltman has won the World's Strongest Man 3 times in 2021, 22, 24, with 2 second-place finishes in 2020 and 23, where he came second to Alexei Novikov and Mitch Hooper. So these other competitions, though, here's where it gets a little sticky because he's gotten 3rd at the Arnold, he's gotten 3rd at the Shaw, and he has 2 seconds in the Rogue. So he does have some good, strong placings, but not the total overall amount of firsts that Hooper does. Now, where do you personally think the value goes into some of these? A lot of people would say that the World's Strongest Man is the most important title because it's been around the longest, it's the most prestigious. So if you think that that's what matters the most, you're looking at 5 podium finishes with 3 firsts for Tom Stoltman, and that is incredible. I mean, it's a very, very, very short list of people who have won the World's Strongest Man, and an even shorter list of people who have won it 3 times, and an even shorter list of people who have podiumed 5 times. So if you're looking just at World's Strongest Man, unbelievable feat and achievement. However, as I talked about, there are different elements that go into being a good strongman. So when we're breaking down these shows, the World's Strongest Man competition tends to lean into a little bit more athleticism, endurance, conditioning, and like explosive power. You're not really going to see very frequently a heavy 1-rep max event. That does happen sometimes, but typically not. If you're having all of the events through qualifiers and the finals, they are slanted more towards that like athleticism, endurance side. Versus the Arnold is sort of notoriously the heaviest show on the planet. So they will usually open up the competition with some sort of 1-rep max event and then followed up by many, many heavy other lifts. So you might have, one year they had a squat 1-rep max, many years they've had a deadlift 1-rep max to start, and then they'll even follow that up with like an Austrian oak where some of the crowd or some of the field zeros, right? Or like the timber frame. A lot of those guys can't even finish that event. On the Denny carries, a lot of those guys are getting very little distance. So as we're talking about these different elements that you need to showcase, we've already covered like the athleticism and endurance side with some explosive elements. They do a lot of like keg throws and sandbag tosses at the World's Strongest Man. And then the Arnold is usually something really heavy across all of those events. Now the Rogue and the Shaw are actually more of kind of a blend of these things. So the Shaw, like the Arnold, opened up this year with a max raw deadlift. And then they also had some events like keg throw for max height and some conditioning medleys where you were carrying a big tractor and then you pulled another one in arm over arm. So the Rogue is similar too, where you get a big blend of all of these different things. So when we're having this discussion about like who is better, you know, what's important to you like as a fan and in your mind to be a good strongman, to me, it is displaying excellence on all of these different things. Because if you only show up really at like one event that slants towards one side of things, you're leaving a big gap in all of those other fields. Now, it's not that Tom Stoltman is weak, it's just that he's not showing up to some of these things. If we're looking at just pure raw strength numbers, both of these guys are actually tied in competition for a log max at 463 pounds. Hooper has the axle world record, like we talked about, at 481. Tom Stoltman has a 463 axle world record, which is, an axle press at 463, which is phenomenal, but it's not the world record. And then when we're talking about deadlift, one of the core essential movements in strongman, believe it or not, Mitch Hooper's raw deadlift is higher than Tom Stoltman's equipped deadlift. So Mitch Hooper has a 966 raw deadlift versus Tom Stoltman's 948 equipped deadlift. Now, worth noting as well, Mitch Hooper has a 1,047 on an equipped deadlift that he just set about 2 weeks ago as of making this video at the Giants Live Deadlifting Championships that was here in the US in Las Vegas. So you probably see where I'm going with this, right? But again, it's up to you to kind of determine what you think is the most important. To me, it is displaying all of those different traits and talents. You know, it's not just raw strength. It is being able to move with heavy weights. It is being able to lift those odd objects. So when we're talking about these competition placings, there's really kind of one way that this is going here. So breaking down the numbers a little further, this stat blew my mind when I just looked this up. Mitch Hooper has competed in 21 pro international shows, podiumed on 20 of them, meaning he missed the podium one time and he got first in 12 of them. So he actually has a win percentage of over 50% in international pro strongman competitions. That is insane when you're talking about all the different guys that you're going against, because strongman is as good as it's ever been. The competition is better than ever, and you still win 50% of the time. That is crazy. Versus Stoltman, 31 international competitions, 15 podiums, still incredible, obviously, and only 4 first place finishes. So I think it's pretty obvious. I think the case is clear, and in no way is this video meant to talk down about Tom Stoltman, because the guy is one of the strongest dudes of all time. Having this stone world record is incredible. His name is absolutely etched in history for 5 podiums at the World's Strongest Man and 3 first place finishes. But even in a very, very short career, 12 first place amongst some of the biggest shows in the entire world, some of the highest level competition we've ever seen. I mean, the answer to me between these two guys is clearly Mitch Hooper. Now, I'm making this video in October 2024. These guys are both young. If I didn't say it already, Mitch Hooper is 28, Tom Stoltman is 30. In 2 to 3 years, this whole thing could get flipped up on its head, because Tom Stoltman just hired a new coach this week. That was a piece of news. So if he gets things moving and clicking in a different way, and he rattles off, let's say he rattles off nothing else other than 3 more World's Strongest Man victories, then that, in my opinion, might, well, you never know. We'll just see how the rest of this goes. But that might push him forward. So let's see how some of these things play out. The only other thing I'll kind of say here about Stoltman is, let's come back to some of these numbers. That would be 16 shows where he was off the podium. And unfortunately, a lot of these, in my opinion, it seems like he sort of checks out. Like he only seems to show up for the World's Strongest Man. And I don't really know what that's about. I mean, maybe your heart's not in it, but it is important to have some grit and push through when things aren't really going your way. And I'm not really sure, and I'm not saying he's like wimping out or whatever, but you tend to see a lot lower placings sometimes for Stoltman, like a 7th or an 8th at some of these shows, or even a dropout like he did at the USA Strongman Championships with Giants Live, when he's not performing very well. And that is, again, I think to be a champion, you have to kind of show up all the time, no matter what's going on. So anyways, that's my thought. As of now, making this video, Mitch Hooper, head and shoulders above Tom Stoltman, as far as I'm concerned. When you look at all of this stuff, I think it's very obvious, but I'm open to having a conversation about this. If you have more thoughts, please drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more Strongman talk and discussions. Join me every Tuesday night right here on my YouTube channel for 7 p.m. Eastern live Strongman talk about everything that's going on in the Strongman world. Thank you so much for watching, and have a championship day.